Welcome to the Skeptic Zone, the podcast from Australia for science and reason.
Yes, it's the Skeptic Zone podcast, episode number 710 for the 15th of May 2022. Richard Saunders coming to you from Sydney, Australia. 15th of May? What? May's halfway done already? Coming up on this week's show, you can count on Adrian with Adrian Hill. Now, you might remember last week we told you that Susan Gerbic and Adrian Hill were on a big tour of the east coast of the United States, visiting little skeptical groups so Susan could give talks. I've been watching Susan's progress throughout this past week because she's been live streaming her talks to various groups. And what a joy that is to sit back and watch Susan Gerbic give a talk about guerrilla skepticism and her various psychic stings. Well, a few days ago, before Adrian actually left the tour and headed back home, she and Susan visited the Ralph C. Wilson Jr. Children's Museum in Buffalo, New York, and spoke to Rebecca Glon. Now, Rebecca is the IT and exhibits manager. Can you imagine a better job? Being an IT and exhibits manager at a children's museum, having to come up and maintain and look after all those wacky, crazy, interactive puzzles and toys and games and experiences designed to help children, to inspire them with science. In this interview, we learn a bit about the museum and Rebecca's job. And thank you very much, Adrian, for being our roving reporter this week. Following that, well, it's a sort of follow-up to a story we did a few months back about tarot card readers on TikTok. This week, we'll look at all the other modalities of divination and paranormal things, where people stream live their pendulum readings, dowsing rod readings, and some bizarre things like throwing bones to divine the future or get answers, or lighting giant matchsticks. Very strange. TikTok Paranormal, coming up a bit later on in the show. And then to round off the show, back to the Trove archives, back to the digital archives from Australia, and we're going to look for references in Australian published history to unsolved mysteries. And we'll be going back all the way to 1909, 1924, and 1939. Halfway through May. That means for most of us here in, well, this part of Australia, and certainly down into the southern parts, down to Victoria, down to Tasmania, we are easing into colder weather. The weather is actually getting colder. You wouldn't believe it. It's, I don't know, in past years, I think May has always been one of my favourite months because it leaves the heat and the humidity of summer behind, and we get to the stage where we can wear nice warm coats and feel comfortable. Yeah, this year, for Sydney at least, it's getting a bit cooler, but the humidity won't quit. Don't know what I can do about that. Maybe if I run downstairs, have some poached eggs on toast and a coffee, that might help. While I do that, I hope you enjoy the Skeptic Zone. You can count on Adrian with Adrian Hill.
Hello everyone, this is Adrian Hill reporting from Calgary after my whirlwind tour with Susan Gerbic, who most listeners know from her work with grief vampires or psychics, and her guerrilla skepticism on Wikipedia project. On my last stop, which was in Amherst, New York, just outside of the city of Buffalo, Susan Gerbic gave her third talk of our trip at the Center for Inquiry, or CFI headquarters. There we met a lot of amazing new people, and I'm hoping to remain friends with them for a long time. while out at the pub afterwards, Susan asked for suggestions for things that we could do the following Saturday morning. Rebecca Glon leaned over the table and handed me her business card and asked us to visit the Explore and More Children's Museum where she worked, and she offered to give us a private tour. This museum was completed May 2nd, 2019, which, as everyone knows, is just before COVID hit. Through the staff's creativity, I'm so glad to say the museum has survived. It showcases 7 educational play zones, all featuring hands-on activities that recreate stories from the Buffalo area. It wasn't just Susan and I who showed up for the tour the next day. We were joined by Will, who is hopefully going to be a future GSOW editor. No pressure, Will. And Julia Lavarnway from CFI. We had a fun-filled day of watching Susan find her inner child, and Rebecca kind of encouraged Susan's crazy shenanigans. But we had such a wonderful time, and the information that Rebecca gave us was really fascinating, and I hope if you're in the Buffalo area, you have a chance to visit. It really is an amazing museum, with or without children. You just have to have someone like Susan along with you. So Rebecca graciously permitted me to interview her before and after our tour. I started the first recording as we were trying to find a relatively quiet spot, in a children's museum, for the interview when Rebecca started telling us about a rumor of ghosts.
Oh, what's a moose?
Is this the haunted part, Rebecca? The whole building is the haunted part.
My boss here has, like when we first started, we would, he was on the 4th floor, which is our other set of offices, and he'd come down. He'd be about to take the elevator, and all of a sudden a light would flicker on, and then it would flicker off. And then we'll, hear snippets of voices just like, did I hear something?
Well, we hear snippets of voices right now in the background.
We do. It's true.
It must be because there's never anybody else in the museum at the same time, and it's not multi-layer, right? So,
and it's not close to the outside either.
Absolutely not.
You would never get any leak from the outside.
The only explanation I can see is haunted house. Yeah, haunted museum.
Yes.
It's a brand new museum too, so why would it be haunted?
That's right. Mm-hmm. And I also noticed something when I came in here, that there's lots of people cleaning. I guess that's become a really important issue after COVID.
Yes.
With kids touching everything, slobbering over everything, because I saw some very young kids as well.
Yeah. We have yuck bags on every floor, so it's this canvas bag. I can point it out if you want. Anytime we see
Did
kids.
you say yuck bag?
Correct.
A yuck bag.
A yuck bag.
All righty.
Anytime
we got a new word that's going to make the dictionary this year.
Yeah, and it's not an Australian strange word.
Yeah.
It's a yuck bag.
I feel a yuck bag should be like slang for one of their dangerous plants, really. Like, anytime we see a kid slobbering all over the thing, even gnawing on it, we're like, hey, friend, can we have that bag? And we put it in the yuck bag, and that gets thoroughly cleaned at the end of the day.
Right.
And obviously, when we first reopened, we had 2 timed sessions, so you could get tickets for the morning or the afternoon. And between those times, we would do a deep clean of the entire thing. Still cleaned at the end of every day.
Right.
And then we just kind of got back as we got better direction from the CDC, and I think Erie County is what we also had to go with.
Right. Yeah, no, that's really good. And the other thing that you pointed out when we first walked in were the sensory bags. And that's really close to my heart. I have children with Tourette syndrome and huge sensory issues. When they were growing up, they had nothing like that. Can you explain a little bit about the sensory bags?
They're specifically for our kids who are sensory-based. They get overstimulated a lot. So inside we have headphones, we have different fidget toys, and other things to distract them from maybe something that's too deep for them that's going on externally. So they can pretty much play and discover, like, with their own selves, their own mind.
Right. And the headphones are important because of all the, it was noisy upstairs. Yes. Very noisy. Lots of kids laughing, noises from what they're playing with. So that could be really overwhelming for these kids in the headphones. Do they play music, or is it just like a noise canceling? What does it do?
Yep, just a noise dampener.
Okay.
We do have 2 quiet rooms in the museum. We have one on the 2nd floor and the 4th floor, specifically for that purpose.
Right. If they get overwhelmed,
yes.
Then they...
And we also have I think it's the 2nd or 1st Friday of every month, we have Awesome Evenings, where it's a time in the evening specifically for families with kids on the spectrum.
Right.
And we actually have a setting on our exhibits that we tone down the volume. and we sell fewer tickets so they don't have the huge rush of the entire public. Yeah, it's like we're learning about humans or something.
Well, thank you. And I might turn it on again a little later, but that was great. All right, we just finished an amazing tour of the museum, and I've got Rebecca back here in her office to ask her some follow-up questions because she told us some pretty amazing stuff. But first of all, can you tell us where this museum is located?
We're in Buffalo, New York.
Awesome. Right by the waterfront.
Oh, yes.
It's lovely here. It's beautiful here. We're looking forward to going for lunch, hopefully, on the waterfront.
I got milk done, so I'm all right.
Yeah, Susan. Can you tell us a little bit about yourself, Rebecca, and your background, etc., how you ended up here?
I manage IT and exhibits here at Explore and More now. I just came into that role last fall. I had previously been solely, IT, and then mostly exhibits repair. So not as much management about talking to vendors and donors and stuff, but really just whatever was on the floor that broke, I had to do. I was in IT solely for pretty much all my life and had always been big into crafting outside of it. So woodworking, leatherworking, I do a couple of reenactments. And then I'd been frustrated with the IT at my last job, and then decided to check out what was available in the area. And this job came up of split IT and working on the exhibits. And my boss made sure in my interview to say, it's not just IT. I said, yes, I'm very excited.
It's a chance to work with kids. It's pretty nice.
I love giving back to the community, and I don't get as much chance to do it with Girl Scouts around here like I used to. But now I get to do it every single day, as opposed to maybe just on the weekends.
So one of your duties, I understand from our talk, is you look after many of the repairs. And there's been some frustrations, some challenges, some interesting things that have happened. Yes, one of the displays was supposed to have a ping pong ball in it, but something had happened with that.
Yeah, that was the Moog Exhibit. So they're a big research and development company in the Western New York area. And they came in to make this exhibit where you can turn a dial that changes the fan speed. And that will push a ping pong ball up and back and forth. But it has a top on the tube. And of course, some kids take the top off the tube, the ping pong ball flies out, and they get to put in whatever they would like. And right now there's a wiffle ball, so it's not
working too well. Yes. A lot of things, I guess, it's trial and error.
Oh, yeah.
You just never know what's going to fail. And some things are over-designed, you said, so they never fail. But you're never too sure what's going to fail every day.
Yeah. The idea, like you go through an exhibit, you think of what's going to break easiest, you make that fairly accessible and still try to make it robust, and then obviously make as much as unbreakable as you can. But, they're kids. They're not going to think like you will.
Exactly. It needs to be kid tested.
Yes.
Another thing that I thought was really interesting that you told us, there was a sports area, and Susan and Julia here from CFI. And I'm going to just interrupt. Julia, you tell us your position, etc.
Yes, I am the managing editor of Skeptical Inquirer magazine, and I've been with CFI for 16 years.
Okay, she raced against Susan in the sports display.
And I lost.
And she lost.
Age over beauty.
And it really helps that most of the people on our staff are women, which is kind of expected in the education industry, but it's
not necessarily in science, though.
It's true. It's true. But just that little change in our demographic has greatly increased like what we pay attention to as far as what we're giving to.
It's wonderful. Yeah. It's a really wonderful museum.
So, Rebecca, what is the age category of children that usually come through the museum? I saw a lot of parents that seem to be having a lot more fun with the displays than the children, but, generally, what is the age categories?
Usually our clientele, our families have, a wide range of kids. Generally, the interest level is around 9-10 is where it breaks off. If you have an older sibling, 12 to 13, and they have a younger sibling who's really involved, then it's easier to get them to have that same level of attention, but it's generally around 9 or 10.
Awesome. Well, it was great talking to you, Rebecca. Thank you so much for the tour and taking the time. It was great meeting you last night at the event and the offer to come here today, which was
amazing.
Amazing. Yeah. And we've had a blast. So thank you so much.
Certainly. Always glad to share.
So until next time, this is Adrienne Hill signing off.
Yes. You both did great.
Hey, Adrian.
Hi, Susan. Out for some shopping, eh?
Yep, I'm stocking up on this imitation maple syrup from Australia.
Imitation? Imitation? No. You need to buy the real thing from Canada.
But I saw the TV commercial, and it said that noted pancake-eating expert Richard Saunders says it's the best maple syrup money can buy, and 60% of people preferred it in a blind taste test. Everyone knows it's the best.
Oh, come on, Susan. You know better than that. That's the argument from authority.
It is?
Or is it the argument from popularity? It might be another logical fallacy. I'm not sure.
Really? If only we had a way of finding out.
Hello, everyone.
Oh my, it's the skeptical fairy godmother angel from the internet.
Yes, that's right. But how did you know who I am?
I listened to the Skeptic Zone podcast. Also, didn't you used to be the tooth fairy?
Oh, yes. I remember you. I'll never forget your left upper lateral incisor. Would you like it back?
No, it's okay. You keep it.
Hey, skeptical fairy godmother angel, what are you doing here in the supermarket?
I've come to tell you that you can find out about 40 different logical fallacies on YouTube in one handy location. Listen to each one to hear an explanation and examples of how they might be used.
Oh.
Just go to tinyurl.com/logicalzone and you'll find all the logical fallacies with Michelle Bickersma with handy time codes to get to the exact one you want.
Who is Michelle Bickersma?
Oh, just a friend of mine.
tinyurl.com/logicalzone. Thank you, skeptical fairy godmother angel. I guess you'll disappear in a puff of smoke and thunder now, eh?
Not quite yet. I have a bit of shopping to do. Susan?
Yes?
Where do I find the Australian maple syrup?
What? No. Come with me, so-called skeptical fairy. This is real maple syrup from Canada. Made with real maple.
Now, you may remember that last year, on the 26th of September, which would be Skeptic Zone number 677, I did a story called TikTok Tarot. And reading from my own show notes, a look at the number of hundreds of TikTokers taking to tarot cards. What do they have in common and why is it so popular? Now, that was me having a look at live TikToks to see how many were doing tarot and examples of some of those readings. So today I thought I'd go back to TikTok and look for other areas of the psychic and the paranormal, people doing live readings. And I've come across quite an interesting cross-section of, interesting modalities. Now, bear in mind that most of these people have something in the background that says, you can pay me here, either by Cash App, which is something we don't have in Australia, I don't think, PayPal, Venmo, which again is something I don't think we have here in Australia. But the idea is that you interact with these people while they're live. They set up their camera so it's facing them and they're doing whatever they do live to the camera, live to the world. And you can ask them questions. And I think the important thing for many of these people, of course, is that you shoot them a little bit of money so you get to the top of the queue or your questions are answered and so forth. Now, what I discovered was that the majority of these sort of things, these so-called readings, are more or less stock standard Barnum statements, although some of them are yes and no. In other words, you supply a question and someone will wave a pendulum, dowsing rods or other devices and say, well, that's a yes or that's a no. My spirit's saying yes, my spirit's saying no. Now, what's very interesting, of course, is when you look at all these users using their, in the case of pendulums or divining rods especially, you can clearly see the ideomotor action in action. In other words, when you look and they're receiving their messages from spirit or earth energies or whatever they claim, you can clearly see their hands moving. With pendulums, their hands will move in such a way that the pendulum will swing one way or the other. With the divining rods, of course, it's much more subtle, but if you know what to look for, you can see the hands twitching and angling in the way to make the divining rods move. And of course, what's very interesting indeed is presumably, they have no idea that that's going on. So let's look at the first one I came across. She's using a pendulum. This is Sandy Sands. Sandy Sands using a pendulum. And according to the comments here, people are shooting her some money. In fact, $5 it appears to me to get a reading. Let's have a listen.
Does Oma have feelings for Heya? Does Oma have feelings for Heya? I'm so sorry, I've got to know. Is Corey faithful to Amanda? Thank you for that. Is Corey faithful? Yes. Will Stacy be successful in her new business? Thank you for the gift, Stacy. Will Stacy be successful in her new business? Yes. Should John sell the house and move to the mountain? Should John sell the house and move to the mountain? No. That's so funny. It's no, John.
And of course, the interesting thing about watching that is seeing the ideomotor in action with her hand directing the pendulum quite plainly. The next one we come across is something very interesting indeed, something I haven't seen before. And this is a user called Sleepy Forest Dweller. Now, we can't see Sleepy Forest Dweller's face. What we do see is like a circular green grass mat or something like that. It's hard to tell exactly what it is. It's about 40 centimeters across. It's a yes or no reading, and these readings are divined by the throwing of 4 bones. Let's have a listen.
Thank you for the roses, guys. Thank you. Catherine, will you go to your aunt's wedding? Will you get to go to your aunt's wedding? Oh, I'm getting a no. I'm sorry. I wonder why that is. Thank you for the TikTok. Brianna, will your text? Brianna, will your ex-best friend, will your ex and your best friend break up? Oh my gosh, if I could get the question out. Yes, they will break up. But why is your friend dating your ex? Not a great friend. Both of them are at fault for that, honestly. That's kind of messed up. Hannah, have you met your future spouse? No, you have not met them yet. Carol, is he your soulmate? Yes, they are your soulmate. Faith, are you going to date Jay-Z? No.
Now, as far as I can tell, the positive answers are given when 2 bones happen to touch, when she throws the 4 bones onto the mat, and a negative answer is given when the bones are separated. However, I will say that in this case, you can shoot her a few dollars if you wish, but at least she's doing most of her readings for free. Our next divination comes from a user called Taurus Moon Official 31. Now, Taurus Moon Official 31 has a very interesting device. It's based on magnets. So there's a little bowl, maybe about 5 or 6 centimeters across, and inside the little bowl, which looks like it's made out of plaster, are 4 distinct areas. And written on them are, you decide, no, probably, ask friend, yes, and unlikely. And the way the spirits communicate, or who knows what, is to guide a little pendulum which is swung over the magnets and the pendulum has a magnet in it too. So it swings wildly about until one of the magnetic fields attracts it enough so it stops. So let's have a listen.
Oh, will I win the lottery? Thank you so much, Shelby Grace, for your lovely hand heart. It was an Ask a Friend for you. Shelby, think of your question. I'm going to spin it now for you. Number 80, guys. Let's get down into the 70s now. That'd be insane. 1,000, is it 1,000? It is an Ask a Friend, darling. Yeah, 1,000 diamonds to reach place number 79. Emma Cancer, am I right? Let's have a look, Emma. Oh, thank you, Angel. You're a sweetheart. You are an angel. Let's have a look. It's an Ask a Friend. Jacintha, is my grandma watching over me? I'm not going to spin it for that, but I'm going to say, of course. Ask for a sign if you'd like a sign. Jaden Scorpio, will I leave Kelvin? Your answer, my darling, it's a yes. It's a yes. Ali's Fizzing Bling, thank you so much for your lovely hand heart. I hope you're having a lovely Wednesday. I want you to think of your question. I'm going to spin it now for you. Let's have a look. What's your answer going to be? Your answer is an unlikely, darling. I hope that's the answer that you were looking for.
What I will say about Taurus Moon Official is that she has some signs just behind this device that says, yes, no questions, type name and star sign, free session, gifts appreciated for entertainment purposes only. No pregnancy, fertility or health questions, over 18s only. Well, fair enough. And I have to say there is a certain amount of entertainment in these things. It's interesting to watch. It's interesting to watch. Our next form of divination is one I've never seen before, and this is from a user called Psychic Eye Center. Now, what this particular lady does is she has two huge matchsticks, bigger than I've ever seen, possibly much bigger than the barbecue matchsticks you might be familiar with, which are oversized matchsticks for lighting barbecues. And she gets two of these matchsticks, turns them end up so the end away from the strike head is facing down, places them into a small container of salt or sand or something so they stick upright, and lights the ends and uses the resulting pattern as the flame burns down the matchsticks to gain her mystical insights. And the sign on the wall behind her says, "Welcome, Manifesting Love, Twin Flame Match Readings." Let's listen in.
So, Alina, this is going to be your match, and this is going to be your partner's match, okay? Okay, again, very strong flame, which is very good. The flame is connecting between you and your partner. I'm not seeing a lot of third-party interferences in this relationship, so that is very good. I am seeing that your partner is leaning towards you, and at times you feel the need to pull away. I'm not sensing because you're not feeling a connection, but I'm sensing just because you're more a type of person that needs your own space, and at times your partner can kind of be clingy, and because of that, you try to pull away, and then your partner pulls away, and it's kind of like this little game between the two of you. But I am definitely picking up a strong connection. I wouldn't necessarily say that this is a twin flame connection. Definitely a soulmate connection, and something very, very positive. Like I said, I'm not seeing any interferences in this. So this was, and it seems like the matches were burning at the same level. So the two of you are at the same page, on the same page, expecting this relationship to go the same way.
So maybe you'll agree with me in thinking that that's pretty stock standard Barnum statement sort of stuff, generalizations, and I wonder where she thinks that advice is coming from, the spirits directing the flames maybe. Now we have a few more to do, and this is an interesting one. This is a user called Diane_White Raven 66, and Diane is going to tell us how divining rods work. So this is an interesting one. Let's have a listen.
I am a medium. I can connect with the other side. I do use pendulums, as you see a lot of people here on TikTok will use, but my tool of choice actually are divining rods. Okay, so here's how the rods work for me. So we're going to level them out here. They are perfectly straight, and you will see somebody's very excited to come through here. You will see I am not going to move my hands at all. There we go. Okay, so the rods are perfectly straight. You can feel when there's energy, the rods will go back and forth as they're doing right now. When the rods cross over, it's a no, and I am not doing that. You can see my hands are perfectly still, but somebody is very excited to get this show on the road here. And when the rods open up, it's a yes. And there you go, we're getting a yes. So go back to center, please. Is that Gary showing us? That's Gary. He is very expressive. He's very happy to be here. Are you very happy to be here with us? Yeah. So a little bit about how I work is that I am a medium. I do get impressions. I get numbers, symbols, signs, words, names. Sometimes, yes, I do. I know, I do. Okay.
Now, I will say the fascinating thing about that particular user and the clip I was watching is that when she's explaining how her hands are perfectly still and she's not moving them, you can clearly see she's moving her hands. But I would bet my bottom dollar that she honestly and sincerely thinks her hands are still and the rods are moving all by themselves. Now we have a user by the name of Viking Sensei. Now, this video isn't live. In fact, it was recorded last year, but it's a gem. It really is. So Viking Sensei is showing us how divining rods work. He's a middle-aged man in his back garden, I would presume, and he has his divining rods, and he's going to show us how to test divining rods.
I started the degaussing rod experiment with this large metal target. As I approached the target, my rods crossed up. There was something in the yard that I did not know about. I reset and approached the target again. As they crossed up, directly below it was the target. Next, I set the target to one side. As I approached, both rods slew to the left and pointed directly at the target. And there you have it.
So to describe the scene for you, he has a large metal bit of junk. I don't know what it is. He drops it on the ground, walks back, walks towards this large metal object, and his divining rods react as he gets closer and stands over the object. Then he throws the object to the side, walks back again, and as he approaches, his divining rods point towards the object. So in his mind, that was a real test, a real demonstration of how the rods can actually find objects, even though he was staring right at the object and he knew where it was all the time. But let's finish this off with another pre-recorded bit about water divining or dowsing rods. And this one is from someone you might have heard of before. This is a TikTok from psychic investigator, paranormal investigator, skeptical investigator, Kenny Biddle.
Hey TikTok. So I've done a couple videos on dowsing rods and offered at least one way to test them to see if they're actually working or not. And I'm gonna get to a second one later on. But I've gotten a lot of comments where people say that they can definitely find water and minerals and all kinds of stuff, and they really, really work. I don't think so. So if you really think you can do this, I wanna show you something. So if you go to cfiig.org, and search for $250,000 challenge, you'll find this page, and it says here that the Los Angeles-based organization offers a $250,000 prize to anyone who can show, under scientific testing conditions, significant evidence of any paranormal, supernatural, or occult power. This includes your alleged ability to find water and minerals and other stuff with dowsing rods or divining rods. So I encourage you, look them up, sign up. You can apply right there online and take the challenge. And $250,000.
And that particular channel from Kenny Biddle is Kenny Biddle 42. And that video was recorded last year. So there you go. And that's simply a tiny amount of the mostly live psychic readings going on at any hour of the day or night in TikTok. There must be hundreds of people at any one moment streaming their psychic visions. Most are tarot cards. As we reported last year, most are tarot cards. In fact, you have to scroll quite a bit to find the ones that aren't tarot cards. Tarot cards are the easiest, of course, because the cards tell a story right there on the card itself. And I would imagine there are some people in TikTok land making probably a decent income from doing tarot or divining readings or other psychic readings. And don't forget, you can check out the Skeptic Zone own TikTok. We have a series called Mystic Minute, and that's easy to find. You just go to skepticzone.tv, look at the top of the page, and there's a link to the Skeptic Zone TikTok. And you can check out some of the ones I've done, including water divining, dowsing rods, and also amongst those is a look behind the scenes at how I record the Skeptic Zone podcast. TikTok psychics. I guess you'd have to say it's a cultural phenomenon of our era.
Carrie, is it?
Oh, yes. Hi, I'm Carrie.
I am Psychic Ross, and I will be reading you this evening.
Oh, interesting. Well, okay. I co-host a podcast. It's called Oh No, Ross and Carrie.
Yes, I'm sensing that. The spirits are telling me it is a show about
Well, it's about
poodles.
like fringe science and spirituality and claims of the paranormal.
And
you knew that.
You do research online.
But more importantly, like we do in-person investigations.
In-person investigate as well.
Oh my God, that's amazing.
See?
Me and my friend, this is so weird, my friend Ross, same name as you.
Weird.
He and I just go and try them all out. And actually, we've gone to a number of psychics. And to be honest with you, it's a lot like this. It's called Oh No, Ross and Carrie. They can find it at MaximumFun.org.
I could have told you that.
It's time once again to look into those pages at trove.nla.gov.au, the online resource from the National Library of Australia and the Australian government. I wonder who it is. I wonder what the team is like, the team who sit down and digitize thousands upon thousands upon thousands of pages from newspapers. Whoever you are, thank you. It means the rest of us can go to trove.nla.gov.au, type in our search criteria, and we all never know what we might find. And this week we're going to be looking for the term unsolved mystery. Come to think of it, isn't a mystery unsolved by definition? And as I speak to you, I notice down the bottom of the Trove page I'm looking at, a little section has come to light with the following: funding for digitisation contributed by the New South Wales State Government, and also funding for the digitisation contributed by the State Library of New South Wales Digital Exchange Program. So there you go. And I would imagine there are similar programs running around the world. Nevertheless, let's have a look. Let's have a look and see what unsolved mysteries are still unsolved, or were at least unsolved at the time of these articles being written. And first up, we have an extract from the Sunday Times. on the 17th of January, 1909. Psychic wonders in Melbourne. Mystery still unsolved. A word to the skeptics. The marvels of the Bailey test seances that take place on Mr. T.W. Stanford's office, Melbourne, every Friday night became more and more awe-inspiring with every fresh demonstration of the presence of some mystic force which operates for the production of these wonders. And one of the strangest phases of the whole thing is the persistent skepticism of so many people in regard to the phenomena, even among the sitters themselves, who have attended several meetings or seances, may be found an occasional doubter, although the evidence of one's own senses makes it abundantly clear that collusion is an absolute impossibility. For how could it be possible for the medium to accomplish these seeming miracles, closely guarded, as he is, from 25 to 30 investigators, each one determined that there shall be no loophole for fraud? The medium has no accomplice or personal friends among the sitters, albeit they all respect him for his simplicity of manner, his unobtrusiveness, and his evident failure to realize what a wonderfully endowed man he is. Endowed with a secret and psychic power, no doubt. No doubt. The, quote, occasional doubter, end quote, above referred to, has plenty of opportunity to study the man in his normal state and learn in conversation with him prior to his going into trance that his simplicity is not assumed, but genuine, and after coming out of trance, that he is as mystified at his own doings as any of those who have witnessed them. Indeed, he is more astonished, apparently, than the sitters, for all he seems to know on emerging from unconsciousness at the end of an hour and a half is that there are strange articles about him, and he accepts the assurance of the meeting that the spirits brought them, using his body as if it were their own, for the purpose of accomplishing these apparently impossible feats. The only way one can account for the semi-skepticism, or shall we call it stubborn and unthinking doubts, of those who witness the wonders and yet hint at fraud, is by concluding that their minds are unable to grasp the vastitude of the subject of psychic force, and in their bewilderment they hit a collusion for want of some other way to explain what they have just witnessed. When was this from? 1909. Okay. It reads textbook mentalism, routine mentalism act. It really does. And of course, I need not remind you that the objective of a good magic trick, conjuring mentalism, is to bewilder the audience and have them left with no way to explain what has just happened. We read on, and I'll just make the note here that the type is not very clear, so if I hesitate every now and then, it's because some of the letters aren't very well formed on the page. On this point, it may be observed, and it is not unduly dogmatic to say so, that if Mr. Bailey could accomplish what he does by trickery, or by the arts of the skilled magician, he could command the largest salary yet paid by the vulnerable or curious director of any similar artist in the world, whereas a comparatively small weekly fee suffices for his remuneration, and he is a humble living poor man who makes less money for producing these marvels than can be earned by a good clerk in a merchant's office. I only wish I could do it on stage by trickery, the medium says, when it is suggested that he is clever and a conjurer. For if I could, I'd make more money than I do at present. A common-sense commercial estimate of the case suggests that Mr. Bailey is not a conjurer, for a man who could fool from 20 to 30 sitters night after night, most of these having attended the seances regularly for 4 or 5 years, a man who could produce live birds in cages and nests, as well as weird-looking garments, flowers, lumps of damp clay, etc., within a locked and sealed cage. And to do it by trickery would be more marvellous, if possible, than Mr. Bailey really is. There is much excuse for the skepticism of the many who have not attended these seances, for they have but hearsay evidence to base their judgment upon, and it is almost impossible for any person to believe that such things can be. When they argue that the sitters are hypnotized and only think they see these wonders accomplished, they still shake their heads when told that, quote, the articles brought are now in Mr. Stanford's possession, end quote, and that the birds are living and thriving in his aviary in East Melbourne. And who can condemn them for dubiousness? When they contend that there must be fraud somewhere, they are not shaken in this opinion when informed that locked doors, close searchings, and unrelenting watchfulness by scores of pairs of eyes make fraud impossible. And when they say with simple sapiency, but the things are brought during a period of absolute darkness, they do so in a tone of triumph, as if to add, I reckon I've got you there. But it is not so. They really have not put their finger on it so firmly and convincingly as they imagine, for mere darkness for 2 minutes does not unlock a door when the key is in the pocket of a sitter who, on the last 3 occasions, was a world tourist who remained in Melbourne for a month to investigate this matter, having been asked to do so by scientific friends in America and cautioned to take nothing on trust. Nor does more darkness for 2 minutes pass a live bird sitting on a nest through the mosquito netting slides of the cage, nor enable the cleverest. I'll stop here to say the next word is not clear. It could be sharper, which might be the term of those days. It's not shopper. Forgive me, I can't quite make out the word. Or enable the cleverest something to extract them from some place of concealment, in his pockets or elsewhere. If a nest could recover from the crushing inevitable to such method, a bird certainly could not live through the ordeal. Indeed, the explanations offered by the skeptics are ridiculous, some of the methods suggested being as absurd and impossible in the estimation of those who have studied the question as does the theory of psychic phenomena appear to the skeptics themselves. There is a huge mystery somewhere. What is it? Melbourne representative of the Sunday Times. And I think especially mentalists and magicians listening to this will have a chuckle as I do that what is being reported here is exactly what a magician or mentalist has set out to do, is to create such confusion and mystery and mysticism that people are forced to leap to the wrong conclusions. Now, let's see. Okay, here we are in the pages of the Herald from Melbourne, Victoria, dated the 1st of March, 1924. Girl detective. Psychic investigation. Herald Special Representative. New York, February 29. An 18-year-old schoolgirl psychic named Eugenie Denins has amazed the police by her revelations concerning mysterious crimes. When given the bare outline of the circumstances, she related the detailed history of the cases, giving the names of the persons suspected. Many of her theories were surprisingly correct. The police state that 75% of her answers corresponded to their information, much of which was never published. The examination lasted several hours, the girl replying to questions unhesitatingly. Police Commissioner Farrett accepted the girl's offer to attempt to elucidate unsolved crimes. And finally, from the Northern Star, published in Lismore, New South Wales on the 13th of March 1939. Ballina acquires a ghost. And Ballina being a coastal town in the north part of New South Wales. Ballina, Sunday. Ballina's ghost has walked. No ordinary ghost this, but one endowed with ethereal transience and at the same time possessing power to knock over an 18-stone man and strike terror into the hearts of nearly 30 people. The debut of the supernatural visitant in Ballina coincided with the encampment of a contingent in the colourful costumes of gypsies. Their caravans comprised 3 of the most modern cars. Feeling secure in River Street, and with his band sleeping peacefully in the cars, believing that no ghost had walked upon the state highway, the leader related a remarkable story. The party arrived from Coolangatta shortly after 5 p.m. yesterday, and after making purchases in the town, commenced to make camp near the Ballina Baths. The atmosphere proved their contentment with their lot as wanderers, as the children played unconcernedly about the camp and fires, where their mothers sang as they prepared the meal. From out of the void, suddenly, from out of the dark of the evening, a wraith-like figure appeared. It lacked substance, but approached with a material purpose in ghostly steps that glided over the ground without a sound. Over 6 feet in height, with the white transparency of the arms showing clearly against the night, large white eyes and drooping white mouth, the ghost approached the camp. Children screamed and ran for the protection of their mothers, who had stopped singing as their leaders challenged, "Stop! For God's sake, stop! Who are you? Stop, or I'll fire!" was called. Still, the figure approached, and, added the leader, "My brother Joseph fell to the ground. No hits, but just like a puff of wind, and he fell and rolled over 3 times while the ghost passed over him." The camp was broken and thoroughly terrified. The gypsies moved their cars to the bright lighting of River Street, and the women completed the preparation of the half-cooked meal over the stove of a cafe. Never return. Children continued to cry, but were soon comforted, and the party slept in the cars until this morning, content with the assurance of the police that the patrol of the streets would prevent the appearance of further ghosts. The leader stated that he had never believed in ghosts before last night. A proposal to turn to the scene met with an emphatic refusal. "The ghost is there, and the land is bad. He will knock you over and roll you in the river. It is the ghost of some person who has been drowned," he said. The mystery of the sudden fright of the band is still unsolved. Who or what is Ballina's ghost? A ghostly tale to end this segment of Trove, Unsolved Mysteries. I wonder if people in Ballina still remember or have heard about that story. The Ballina ghost, scaring a band of gypsies. Gypsies, I wonder who these people really were. Were they gypsies? Were they just travelling folk? I wonder. And I also wonder what we'll find next week when we dive into the trove, the treasure trove of information available online. Because you never know what you might find. Thank you for listening to the Skeptic Zone this week, and thank you very much to Adrian Hill for that report. I hope you enjoy being an interviewer, Adrian. It can be very rewarding. Coming up on next week's show, we have the Australian Skeptics newsletter, hopefully written by Tim. Tim, if you're listening, we can't wait to read the newsletter every other week. And Trove, next week, looks at so-called psychic detectives in the United States. And I can tell you, I've got a lot of Trove lined up for the next month or so, including subjects like James Randi, dowsing for students, astrology, psychic scams, and a two-parter on Uri Geller. Thank you to those people who continue to support the Skeptic Zone at PayPal or Patreon. If you'd like to help me out, complete the show every week, get it out so you can listen to it, head for skepticzone.tv and you'll see some gentle reminders there about signing up. Hard to miss. And, well, if you feel like contributing maybe $5 a month, maybe $10, some people contribute more, $20, or if you're so inclined, you can simply buy me a round of drinks. In other words, you can chip in maybe more, maybe $50 or $100 as a special donation. No matter how much you care to help me out, I am very grateful, of course. And so are all the other listeners. Aren't you? Aren't you? Yes, you are. And owing to a very generous benefactor of the Skeptic Zone, very soon I'll be buying some nice new audio equipment I can use for recording. Field recording, I think, specifically. But for this week, with the early birds chirping out the window, I don't know if you can hear them. I've got up particularly early today to record the Skeptic Zone to avoid noises outside, traffic, aircraft and birds, and I've almost done it, almost gotten away with it. But for this week, almost, one day that soundproof studio with rubber walls will be mine. This is Richard Saunders signing off from Sydney, Australia. You've been listening to the Skeptic Zone podcast. Please visit our website at www.skepticzone.tv for show notes, contacts, and to access the back catalogue of episodes going back to 2008. You can follow the Skeptic Zone podcast on Twitter at Skeptic Zone, visit our Facebook page, or leave a review on iTunes. You can also support the Skeptic Zone via Patreon or PayPal. The Skeptic Zone podcast is an independent production. The views and opinions expressed on the Skeptic Zone are not necessarily those of Australian skeptics or any other skeptical organisation. Hello to those people who keep listening after the music. Normally we roll a die, and you guess what number comes up. But lately we've been using a deck of cards. I've got a nice deck of cards here. They're interesting ones. They're from the bicycle company, Air Cushioned Finish, made in the USA. I like bike cards. They're the choice of many magicians from around the world. And these are a particularly interesting set. I've got quite a collection. These are large print bike cards, so for maybe visually impaired people. It's just one of the decks of cards in my collection. I'm going to shuffle this deck, as you can hear, and I'll stop, and it's up to you to use your psychic mystical powers, or dumb luck, probably dumb luck, and see if you can divine or guess what card is revealed. So here we go. The first card today is the Three of Spades. The Three of Spades. All right, that goes back into the deck. I wonder if anybody got the Three of Spades. Next one is the Queen of Clubs. Okay, we've got a Spades and a Clubs, a Three and a Queen so far. Queen of Clubs goes back into the deck. And one more. Last card. Here it comes. The Seven of Clubs. So all black suited cards today. How did you go?